Hey y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion, recording a little bit after midnight on Sunday morning. I like to write on the Sunday liturgical readings, include some artwork and so forth. Tonight it didn't happen. I came home from my work at the winery, which is what I do pretty much every Saturday, and kind of got working on some other things. And before I knew it, there was a pile of dishes to be done, and then no time to write. I did, though, want to record and read the short liturgical gospel for the day, and then talk a little bit about my experiences, and maybe some of yours as well, as to how they connect. Let's begin, though, as we always begin, by recognizing, realizing, remembering, and celebrating that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So the gospel continues, the liturgical gospel for tomorrow, or today, because it's after midnight, for Sunday, which is the 20th Sunday after Pentecost. We're only less than a month away from Advent. Advent begins typically the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving, I think, is just about a month away. So time is fleeting. We are almost at the end of the liturgical calendar, which means we will be finished for this cycle reading from Luke's gospel. And when the new year comes, we'll be reading from Mark's gospel. So a little bit more with Luke. In Luke's gospel, though, we get some unique parables, and this is one of them. Matthew and Mark, I'm pretty sure, do not have this story. And it is a parable, a story that Jesus tells that is really pretty low key in the fact that it feels very real. You know, there are times when Jesus points things out. One of the famous or familiar places is what we call the widow's mite, where Jesus points to a widow. Excuse me. I am so sorry for that. He points out a widow in the temple who is making an offering, and he says, that she is given from all that she has given. Prior to that, a rich man comes in and is very ostentatious about the amount that he is giving. And the gospel writer frames that as something Jesus is looking at and pointing out. This story kind of sounds like that, but it is, couched as a parable. And I want to read that parable to you first and understand that this comes immediately after last week's gospel, which was about the unjust judge and about prayer, about perseverance. And this is about, at its top level, humility, but I think it's also more significantly about empathy and also about reality. So here it is from the tribal or the indigenous translation that I often read from here on Uncommon Communion. So Jesus, or Creator sets free, as it is used in this translation, then told a story to warn the ones who trusted in themselves and thought they were better than others. Two men, a separated one, a Pharisee, and a tribal tax collector went to the Great Spirit's sacred lodge to send up their prayers. The separated one, Pharisee, kept his distance from the tribal tax collector and prayed out loud, Creator, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humankind, like the ones who use force to get from others what they want, who are not faithful in marriage, or have no understanding of right or wrong. I thank you that I am that I am not like this tribal tax collector standing here. I go without food twice a week for spiritual reasons, and I give a tenth of all my gain. Now the tribal tax collector hung his head down and would not even lift his face to the spirit world above. He beat his hands against his chest and cried out, Creator, be kind and have pity on me. I am a pitiful man, full of bad thoughts, and wrongdoings. Can you not see? Creator sets free, Jesus said. The tribal tax collector returned home in good standing with the Creator, but the separated one, the Pharisee, did not. The ones who think too highly of themselves will be brought down low. The ones who humble themselves will be lifted up. Oftentimes in the Gospels, we have the story and then we have the zinger, the moral of the story, right? The conclusion. Oftentimes it is a saying that Jesus gives, sometimes a very hard saying or a difficult saying to perhaps understand or to follow. And in this case, we clearly see this closing line, right? The ones who think too highly of themselves will be brought down low. The ones who humble themselves will be lifted up. So the story leads to that conclusion. I think, though, there are some other important things in the story. And I think one of the most important aspects here is how attached to reality, connected to reality, the tax collector is, and how detached the Pharisee is. Even though the Pharisee really thinks he is doing what reality, his religion, his faith demands, fasting 2 times a week and giving a tenth of his income, right? He's really out of touch with reality for one simple reason, because he cannot see himself like the others around him, especially the tax collector, right? The wealthy man, the Pharisee, is seeing himself above and separated from the others, right? Pride, boastfulness, haughtiness, right? But that is not just a form of power, placing oneself above others, but it's a lie. It's a dishonesty. It is not being in reality, because the reality is, again, what the tax collector is accessing, what he is proclaiming. Number one, he recognizes his brokenness, right? We all have brokenness, some perhaps more than others. Each of us may be in our own flavor based on our own history, our own genetics, our own upbringing, and so forth. But each of us is broken. Each of us is imperfect. And because of that, we are similar to others in ways that are far more important than anything superficial, including where we are in a caste or what job we do, how religious we are, right? All of those things that the Pharisee is seeing himself as different than the others, than all others, right? And that is a profound and yet common sin. This idea of separation, this idea of I am better, I am unique, I am apart. And that's just not true. That is just not true. I was thinking about this when I was in a 12-step meeting on Saturday. My Saturday home group is a Zoom meeting. I'm actually the secretary for the meeting, and we had a group conscience this week, just on Saturday. And the last Saturday of the month is when somebody shares their story, sometimes called a lead. And the gentleman who did the lead in this meeting, I had not met him. He's not a regular at the meeting. He goes to other meetings, apparently. But his story resonated with me deeply. There was a number of aspects when he was telling his story of addiction and his story of recovery, how it impacted his life in different ways. I really resonated with that. And that's the whole purpose of a 12-step fellowship, 12-step meetings, is to see that we are not unique, right? That we have something very deeply in common. When we choose what room we want to go to, which of the 12-step fellowships is going to speak to our truth and our experience and our addiction, when we show up, hear other people's stories, share our own story, we recognize that we have so much more in common than not, right? And I felt that today, and I've heard that today. And that is such an important reason that I go to 12 step groups. The other thing that the Pharisee misses is the fact that we can't do this alone. The Pharisee seems to think like he is a self made man. 12 step recovery makes us realize that we are powerless over whatever our addiction is. There is a power greater than ourself that can restore us to sanity. And then step 3, we can make a decision to turn our lives and our will over to that power greater than ourselves. And it seems that the Pharisee misses the boat on that. And the tax collector gets it, gets it. And that little line where it says that, and I forget exactly what it says. I'm going to refer to my book here. He says that the tax collector returned home in good standing with Creator, but the separate one, the Pharisee, did not. So one was healed, one was connected, one was in reality where the other was not. All right, y'all, I hope that this is helpful as you approach your life and recognizing humility and connection and empathy. Lots of things that seem to be in short shrift right now as we look at the world, as we look at the current events. And may we who follow Christ allow ourselves to be transformed so that we may be more humble, so that we may be more kind, more empathetic, and understand the connection that we have with all of creation. All right, y'all, it feels appropriate to close with the 12-step prayer that is so common, not originally from the 12-step world, but brought into very common usage. Pray with me, if you will. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not ours, be done. All right, y'all. Thank you. Blessing and good. Be bold. Be well.